Good morning, students. All right, we were discussing about this cloud management and programming model case study. All right, so we have to review the design characteristics. We know that a cloud computing system is a combination of dynamic elastic infrastructure and flexible composable application architecture. It has got infrastructure that can be expanded and that can be shrinked as well. And architectures also, you can have uh, different levels of architecture, different types of architectures, and programming can be done at different level. Therefore this cloud computing is a dynamic system, dynamic infrastructure, flexible application architecture, both encompasses to form cloud computing. And here, cloud computing infrastructure is dynamic and is elastic in nature, and architecture is flexible and composable. Cloud computing in a nutshell. We have learned that cloud computing is uh, quite beneficial for enterprises, for customers, for small businesses, for startups, for large businesses, even for a student, for academician, for researcher, for everyone. Cloud is providing the resources on pay and use basis, and that is quite convenient for everyone. It has got uh, everything that is that may be needed by a computer user. And it three unique deployment options. Cloud computing provide three unique deployment options, which are private clouds, public clouds, and hybrid clouds. You can have your application uh, created for your own cloud, which is private cloud, and it can you can utilize public cloud, and you can have a hybrid version in which you have very sensitive and confidential information stored in your private cloud, and other types of information in public cloud. And a fourth deployment option is available as an extension of private deployment, namely community deployment. Okay, it is for if universities take that they come under uh, academic community. If researchers uh, create a private cloud, it is actually serving to uh, researcher community. You can have a startup community, a business community. You can have different things here. All right. And then at service delivery end, it has three categories. What are the three categories? As, PaaS, and SaaS. What is this as, PaaS, and SaaS? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. We know that uh, we can pay and use the hardware, and we can use the operating system or any library platform. We can use any application software, a utilities application in SaaS. And this figure, okay, this is already done. So here you have private cloud, hybrid cloud, public cloud, and this consumer control will be more as you go to private cloud, and abstraction will be high as you go up from infrastructure platform to software, and cost will be less as you go from private to public, and flexibility will be more as you come down from SaaS PaaS to AS. Migration into the cloud. uh, what are the reasons behind migrating to the cloud? Well, we all know that uh, it is quite economical, and they no need to set up, and you can just give a try on a startup or on anything without having any hardware risk facility. Just making by making use of this cloud platform, we can do that. So it's quite beneficial to migrate to cloud, and customer may choose in-house or outsourcing, and non-cloud facilities into cloud. In-house means everything is managed uh, within the enterprise. Outsourcing is giving the enterprise tasks to some third party, and then that is actually a non-cloud computing that can be migrated into cloud. And migration can happen at any level, as PaaS or SaaS. Phases of migration. Migration into cloud must follow a structured and integrated approach. All right, migration cannot be done in a random and arbitrary fashion. You have to have a structured plan and approach, and the recommended steps, and these are sequential steps one after the other, uh, mm, are given here. These are known as the 7 phases of the process of migrating into cloud. 7 phases to migrate to cloud, from non-cloud to cloud. Assessment. The first step is to assess. Assess means, what are you assessing? Return on investment. When you are investing, you obviously want profit. So how much is the return on investment? And then isolation. It is like traditional application must be isolated from their environmental dependencies. Whether we are able to isolate an application or not. If an application is dependent on several other, uh, computing system environments, some other apps or some other softwares, this should be isolated and made to work in such a manner that that particular unit can be deployed and can be made to function. Mapping. Here features have to be identified to be moved into cloud, and those need to be retained in earlier environment. You have to identify the features. And then rebuilding. The part which is being moved to cloud need to be recoded, redesigned, and recreated as per the requirement and the protocol of the cloud. Augmentation. This is in cloud computing service, increase the efficiency and capacity of the application. To increase the efficiency and capacity, um, augmentation, to extend. Testing. Testing is a new form of application carried out before moving it into the cloud. You have to perform testing. Once all the necessary changes have been done, testing is performed on that to ensure that it actually runs in the cloud. Optimization is necessary in order to make the application the mm, you know uh, to use less resources, less time, and it can be executed in less cost. That optimizations have to be done. And a well-planned migration into cloud provides significant advantages and opens up doors for new opportunities. And it cuts down capital expenses for computation and also reduces operational expenses. We know that uh, to buy a computer is very expensive relative to use it on a cloud. Asset management in cloud. Cloud computing has made the asset management task very simple for the consumers of computing, and the task of managing computing assets have been transferred to the service provider. Customers do not have to do anything. Okay, asset management. When you are when you uh, take a house on rent, then what happens? Perhaps many times the owner of the house will take care of so many um, works to be done in that, so that the owner is responsible for that. Likewise, when you have got some asset on rent, it's like on rent only when you are paying something and you are using. So that from other person who is the owner of that, they are responsible for managing it. Capacity expansion, provisioning, and everything is to be done by the provider only. The customer do not do anything of that sort. Cloud service management. This NIST document on cloud computing classifies the cloud service related to functionalities into three parts: business support. Cloud can support a business, provisioning and configuration, allocating uh, the resources and configuring the resources. Portability and interoperability uh, means making an application uh, to work on any cloud and to interact with another application or any cloud. These things we covered in great detail earlier, and that is only the cloud service management. Business support, this now further will delve deeper into this. So what is there in business support? Customer management. Then we have this contract management, inventory management, accounting and billing, reporting and auditing, pricing and rating. These are the operations that need to be provided in order to support a business, and these will be provided by the cloud. Provisioning and configuration is about the rapid provisioning, allocating rapidly, changing in the resource if resource can be changed during execution, um, monitoring and reporting, checking how much is being used, how is uh, how much time and which resource, metering that increasing the amount as time passes. SLA management, the service level agreement that is between consumer and provider. These come under provisioning and configuration. This is also a responsibility of a service provider. And portability and interoperability deals with data portability, copy data to from bulk data transfer, service interoperability, unified management interface, system portability, this virtual machine image migration, that is application migration. These all come under portability and interoperability. So these things we already covered in our earlier classes. Let us move on to cloud management tools. What are the tools to manage the cloud? Management operations include the following activities. This is resource configuration, resource provisioning, policy management, performance monitoring, cost monitoring, performance optimization, and security management. We know all these things. These are cloud management tools. And network management solutions had their focus on vital system attributes like fault, configuration, accounting, performance, and security. And these attributes are often expressed as FCAPs. Okay, these FCAPs are the vital system attributes. Means how often a fault occurs, what is the configuration, how is accounting done, what is the performance, and how security is maintained. Okay, this all also we covered. And cloud management standards. What are the standards? There might be some standards. If standards are followed, then what happens is there are high chances of uh, leveraging multiple clouds, having one application on one cloud interacting with another application on another cloud. All this is possible because of standards. And the standard distributed management task force came up with the standards which alleviated the tasks of cloud management. And this group, DMTF, they have created a model to standardize the operations of the cloud service lifecycle. And to simplify the process of cloud system management, this DMTF introduced open standard interface specification known as Cloud Infrastructure Management Interface. This open in the sense that um, if they follow open standards, everyone knows it, everyone follows it, and it is easy to interoperate and port. And this CIMI, which is Cloud Infrastructure Management Interface, it provides standard APIs for managing cloud infrastructure, and this enables the development of vendor-independent cloud management tools. And this has led to the emergence of Open Virtualization Format (OVF), which is about having um, a common format on every cloud, so that consumer, when they are migrating to another cloud, or when they are wishing to have their applications on multiple clouds, different service providers clouds, this all is possible if they have this open virtualization format. Then this share of management responsibilities, SaaS, PaaS, and AS. Management responsibilities, this consumer part, this providers part. Look at here, in SaaS, everything has to be done by this everything. What everything? This entire stack of services, including cloud infrastructure, hypervisor, guest OS, and platform application. This is responsibility of provider. Consumer just access an application in SaaS. In PaaS, cloud infrastructure, hypervisor, guest OS platform. These are the three services provided by provider, and consumer creates an application on this guest OS and access that by interface. When you come to this as model, here consumer responsibility increases. Uh, it not only create an application, it can also install an application operating system, can set up a platform, set up an environment to create an application. As you move in forward, consumer responsibility increases and the provider responsibility decreases. And then as consumer have the maximum system management responsibilities among all cloud service consumers, and they get full control of everything over the cloud infrastructure facility. Cloud service lifecycle, the life cycle of cloud service. Life cycle of cloud service has different stages. And what are the different stages of service life cycle? Phase one, this is creation of services. At first, service template has to be defined, and then new service templates are created. Phase two, it is about to develop, understand, and manage relationships with consumers with reference to a service. In phase three, uh, actual services are created, deleted, or modified as per the SLA definition or service contract made in phase two. Look at this figure. Life cycle of a cloud service. This is a cloud. Here, service template is created and modified, and then here SLA definition, service contract is um, created and agreed upon. Service creation and provisioning, resources are allocated. Service optimization and customization. Uh, Optimization has to be done in order to make the best use of the resources. Service maintenance and governance, service retirement, and consumer requests service via self service portal. Whenever consumer requests a service, this cycle is followed. SLA management, we know that SLA is quite an important document. It includes um, every information related to cloud access and the level agreement being made between service provider and consumer regarding quality of service. Uh, Suppose again, let me give you an analogy. If you take internet connection, there are connections which gives 50 Mbps, 100 Mbps, 500 Mbps. So that is quality of service. How much you take, and 500 GB of free data, 1 TB of free data. Like this, you have certain limits defined, and based on that, price is estimated, and price is calculated, and then bill is prepared. Likewise, for different qualities, if you require the best quality, you have to pay the best, and that is mentioned in SLA. How much, what quality you require, and how much you are going to pay for it. SLA is a legal agreement, and in cloud computing, it is made between provider and consumer or between provider and carrier regarding quality of service. Uh, Cloud consumer, SLA1, cloud provider, sorry, SAL1, SAL2, cloud carrier. So it is between this two and this two. Types of SLA, you have infrastructure SLA and application SLA. Infrastructure SLA deals with infrastructure related issues like network connectivity, server availability, packet loss issues. And application is SLA obviously deals with performance metrics of application like latency of web server, latency of database server, application response time, and others. SLA life cycle. In the process of establishing and maintaining the agreement on terms and conditions, each SLA passes through a life cycle and consisting of sequence of phases. These are the sequence of phases. First, contract definition. Your service provider define SLA corresponding to their service offerings. You might see a brochure. Okay, in brochure they mention that uh, mm, if you go to an institute, they say that Java complete package including core Java, advanced Java, servlets, JSPs, and other advanced technologies like struts, hibernates, cost is 5,000. Then you go to another listing where you find only advanced Java. You find servlets, JSPs, JDBC, like that. You will have defined topics. Here also service offerings are defined, and publishing and discovery. it has to be published and appropriate promotion is done so that consumer become aware of those services. You know, people at the time of exam, they stand near the gate of the college and distribute some pamphlets. What those pamphlets contain? Some information. They make you aware of the institute, their pricing, their faculty. Like that, service provider also create awareness among consumers by publishing their pricing details and the service. And then negotiation also happens when consumer ask for uh, mm, higher service for lesser cost, some sort of negotiation. And operationalization, it is SLA monitoring, accounting and enforcement. That document is not just on paper, it is in action. So SLA life cycle defining, publishing, negotiating, operationalization, and SLA decommissioning means during termination of contract. Decommissioning is about ending it. And then disaster recovery in cloud. Natural disasters or accidental incidents may cause damage to the physical computing resources. And contrary to traditional computing approach, disaster or damage of computing devices at client's location can no more cause much harm in cloud computing environment. Because there is a disaster recovery planning in cloud and that decision on two key factors: recovery point objective and recovery time objective. Recovery point objective determines to refer to the maximum volume of data that can be compromised in case of disaster. How much data can be compromised? And the volume is denoted in terms of storage duration, like number of hours or days. For instance, if it is decided that the data which is already 8 hours old cannot be compromised, then there should be a plan to create a backup at not more than 8 hours interval. Okay, if there is a contract that uh, every 8 hour backup is taken, and suppose if you are in seventh hour, there are chances of losing this last 7 hours data because that has not been backed up. And if the policy is to back up at every hour, then there is you know again a possibility that only 1 hour information can be lost. The recovery time objective determines the acceptable system downtime. Downtime means what? How much time system can be down and not providing any service. Sometimes you see that a website will be down and they say that um, it is under maintenance, like that. So data recovery strategies, how to recover the data. Data recovery depends on backups and data retention. Obviously, backup is the primary method of recovering the data. Recovery of data depends on the quality and frequency of backups. Every service provider has their own backup strategy and backup file retention policy. You can see here data types and their backup strategies. Fixed data, this is cloud specific data, and backup strategies that there is no need to maintain backup for this data. And transient data, there is no need to maintain backup for this data as well. And configuration data, this must be backed up and should be maintained at semi-regular interval. Persistent data should also back up at regular intervals. And what is persistent data? Day-to-day transaction. What is configuration data? The application or system configuration. Transient data, it it is a data that is generated for some time being data. Fixed data, this is like operating system and utility software, and it is anyway fixed. Okay, cloud consumers planning regarding data backup, geographical data redundancy. Okay, geographical redundancy is of data increases the chances of survival during disaster. If you have your server here in Hyderabad and you backup server is in Bangalore, and if suppose in Hyderabad floods occur, and Bangalore there are no floods, then your backup is totally safe. Geographical redundancy perhaps give you a effective method of backing up of data. Organizational redundancy, a natural disaster or accident damages to data are relatively rare event, and business disaster is a scenario which can throw even very big organizations. Okay, due to organizations, uh, there is much, uh, you know, chance of disaster than natural disaster or accidental disaster, because these two are rare events. We see that there are floods here now, but then there were floods 100 years ago. So like that, natural disasters are rare events. Intercloud or cloud federation. This term intercloud represents cloud of clouds, and this term was coined in 2007, and it symbolizes data centers of future. And the concept was emerged to counter the fact that no cloud has infinite physical resources, and therefore you should have cloud of clouds. And this intercloud concept is also known as federated cloud or federation of clouds or cloud federation. And such federations are only responsible when clouds share similar architecture and interfaces. Okay, when clouds share similar architecture and interface, then such federations means grouping. You have cloud 1, cloud 2, cloud 3, cloud 4. If suppose cloud 1, 4 and 3, they are similar in architecture and interface, then they can form a federation. And then when this cloud resources are allocated or provisioned and no more resources are available, they can make use of another cloud. This way they can form cloud of clouds. Cloud programming, a case study with Eneka. Eneka is an outcome of efforts in the field of distributed and grid computing from the University of Melbourne, Australia. And Eneka offers PaaS facility in cloud computing. Eneka is a Sanskrit term meaning many in one. All right, and the uniqueness of the solution is to support for multiple programming models like task programming, thread programming, map reduce programming. And here we will look at this Eneka cloud. Each of the three programming models supported by Eneka has three main elements as executors, schedulers, and work units. Apart from this, there is a manager. This work unit is logical entity that defines the size or unit of an executable module that can be handled by Eneka. A work unit. It is like Java class, a unit of code that can be executed. And what is scheduler? Scheduler arranges the execution of work components. When there are multiple work units, they have to be distributed uh, at multiple executing nodes, which are executors, and this distribution is done by scheduler. And manager is a client component that communicates with an ecosystem on behalf of the client system. And this is Anika component model. This is scheduler, executor, multiple executors. So what scheduler does? Can give the first task to this executor, second task to this executor, third task to this executor, like that. It schedules. And this client system has a manager, and these are work units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these work units are given for execution or for processing to the scheduler, and there is a manager at the client system. So Eneka means many in one. It is named so because it supports multiple programming models like task programming, thread programming, and MapReduce programming. And Eneka is built over Microsoft .NET framework. Okay, it is built on Microsoft .NET framework, and Microsoft .NET framework environment uh, supports this Eneka workload management and distribution platform. Eneka has a special ability of being deployed on third-party as well, and it can be deployed on Amazon EC2, Microsoft Azure, GoGrid, and several private clouds. Eneka basically comprises of two components: tools for rapid application development and software development kits containing APIs. This one and runtime engine to manage deployment and execution of application. Aneka PaaS model, here there might be private cloud, public cloud, and this Aneka supports multiple programming and business applications make use of Aneka so that they can execute on public cloud or private cloud. And this thread programming is a concept in Aneka, uh, which is used to create a multi-threaded program over cloud. In this using thread programming model. In this model, threads are treated as distributed threads, being known as Eneka threads. And Eneka follows the principle of local threads, which can be executed over distributed system architecture. And Eneka schedules the execution of threads efficiently, while creation and control of the threads is the responsibility of application. Eneka, what does Eneka do? Uh, Schedules the execution of threads, the schedule. Whereas creation and controlling of the threads is the responsibility of application developer. In Anika thread programming model, work units are represented as Anika threads. And how do you create an Anika thread? Anika application, angle bracket, Anika thread, and you have a thread manager. So Anika application class type is used for all distributed application. It's all like Java class. If you put just Java class here, you will get Java class, and you perhaps can have multi inheritance where you have one class, another class like that. So in Eneka thread programming, an application is treated as a collection of threads called Eneka threads, which can be executed remotely over distributed environments. Next, task programming. That was thread programming. Thread programming primary use is parallelism in execution. Task programming model, any application is considered as a collection of tasks which are independent of each other and can be executed in any order. If you have a task T1, in that you will have components like component 1, component 2, component 3, and these three are independent and they can be executed in any order. C3 can be executed before C2, or C1 can be executed before the other two. And high performance computing is the use of task programming model for executing application needing high computing power. These applications, for instance, weather forecasting, that is an application that requires high performance computing. It's not easy and it cannot be done on a single machine. And if you consider that recently the black hole was discovered, and that image was actually black hole was discovered long ago, but its image was taken. And how it was taken? It was taken by means of high performance computers and several computers like that. And high throughput computing is also use of task programming for for executing the applications that needs high computing power for a longer period of time. Okay, there is another category in task computing known as mini task computing that combines HPC and HTC. HTC is high performance computing. It is primarily for a shorter period of time, whereas high throughput computing uh, is used for a longer period of time. And you can combine both in many task computing. And how do you perform task programming in Anika? Look at this figure, like this task 1, task 2, Anika application. This task manager takes any, these are Anika task components, and this will take this and um, hand over to the cloud, Anika cloud, which executes these tasks. And these tasks are created through programming. Like you are writing a Java program to perform arithmetic operation, which is one task, and to perform multiplication table, another task, and these are two independent tasks given to the Anika cloud. And Anika application class is specialized for handling task bundles together through the task created through iTask interface. That here it is given iTask interface. Here iTask interface. So tasks are created by developers using Anika supplied interface and classes and then handed over to Anika Cloud for execution. MapReduce programming, the third one. First one was multi-threaded programming, second was programming, third one is MapReduce programming. This MapReduce programming is for data intensive computing in which you have a huge data to be processed, then you split them and you give it to multiple executors and you combine them later. So MapReduce is a programming model introduced by Google to process large volume of data, and it represents computational task using two functions, map and reduce. And what does map do? Map filter and sort the data into queues. For instance, the name of students have to be sorted, and there is a queue which will be maintained. And reduce function is perform summary operation. You know, it first splits up and then arrange them in some order. This, and then reduce will combine and create one single output file. MapReduce programming in Anika. Anika MapReduce programming model is this. This is Anika Cloud. This is Anika client system. Here, input data, MapReduce application will split it into multiple parts and then give out to Anika Cloud. Anika Cloud has these execution modules. They execute and then they combine and then give. Actually, they give the output, and here reducer, which is whose responsibility is to combine all the output files to create one large output file, uh, is done here and it is given to client system. And it is supporting distributed file system, MapReduce scheduler, MapReduce execution module. These are the three modules uh, which are the runtime implementation of this MapReduce program. With this, we have completed this chapter number 19. I urge you all to do this exercise. Tomorrow we will look at this popular cloud services.